Good morning. Good morning, everyone out there. It is a moody morning in New York City, but we're very glad to be back at AIPAD. And I also want to make sure I thank AIPAD for hosting these. Would have been some really lovely talks, and I want to thank Lydia and Irene in particular. Welcome to a conversation that we are going to have. My name is Stephen Frailey. By the way, I publish a magazine called Dear Dave. We've been publishing since 2007. And I'm very happy to be a part of this dialogue. And please welcome Sharon Walters to New York from London.
It's really good to be here. Thanks for inviting me to have this conversation.
Of course. I think we should do this every couple of weeks.
I think so.
Sit down and have a conversation.
I should be flown out.
Or I should be flown over. Even better. Let me start with just a bit of an introduction, a proper introduction. Sharon Walters is represented by the HackelBury Gallery in London, whose work is here represented in their booth at AIPAD. And the work has also been shown at Gagosian in London, the Fitzwilliam Museum in Cambridge, and the Gallery Affinity in Lagos. She has worked in the collection of the National Portrait Gallery in London and has held several positions in cultural engagement and as a community facilitator, which we will get into a bit later. These conversations are notable for the fact that they are not accompanied by any sort of visual information. So I'd like to start with just a basic, if you would, Sharon, just a basic description of your work. It's almost as if this is a radio program about the visual arts.
So my work, every single piece is a hand cut. Either it's a collage-based work or it's a paper cutout work. I use a surgical scalpel knife to create portraiture through my work.
Did you say surgical scalpel?
Yes. So I think over here you might call it an X-Acto knife. That's what I've heard people call it.
Because when you say surgical, I immediately begin to think of surgery and the body.
Yeah.
So I shouldn't go down that.
No, a lot of people have made that reference and
have
mentioned excavation and kind of revealing certain things through portraiture. But so sometimes the work is very layered. It's they throw shadows. So I have the work framed in such a way that shadows are cast onto the background. Sometimes those backgrounds are slightly busier. They might, the three pieces you've seen here at AIPAD, which we'll go into, are slightly different, but sometimes they're very stark, so you may get just an outline. Quite often people aren't sure whether the work's being created with a knife. They often think it's laser cut, which is a compliment to me.
But there actually, since you bring it up, there is, to my eye, to my recognition, there is a sense of the hand in the work. These are not perfect manufactured cuts.
No.
One looks at the work and gets a strong sense of somebody, you laboring with the work. Yeah.
And I think laboring in a really positive way, because I find the process very healing. I find the act of cutting into the images, when I say cut, they're with a flow. So everything feels very, they're in flow. It feels like a very beautiful act. And the more I remove from the image, the more that's revealed. I think there's a beauty in taking away. That I think people really connect with.
Right. There is a sense of ritual to the work. I think having that strong sense that this is not a manufactured object, but that it feels artisanal, very, very much.
Yeah. And I think for me it is important. As much as I do try to make those lines completely perfect, I think particularly with these works that we're showing here at AIPAD, you can see that there is, maybe the lines look pretty perfect, but then I've drawn into, that's what I didn't mention actually, I have drawn into some of the pieces with soft pastel. So that adds another element, another layer, and very deliberately those lines have been kept in, so you can see that there is I have made that kind of interaction.
And we should also mention that these pieces are one of a kind.
Yeah.
Unlike obviously, conventional photographic material.
And that's been really interesting being here, because so many people have asked me, are these one of a kind, or are they additions? And I'm like, no, every single piece is one of a kind.
Yeah.
And that's what makes them for me, it makes them very special. And I think it's also to do with the fact that, as we were talking about just now, you can see my hand in it.
Sure.
So it's not a reproduction.
Yeah. Do you think that because they are one of a kind, and I've talked to friends who are painters about this, because they're one of a kind, that it influences your relationship to them, and does it then influence where the pictures leave you? They're one of a kind, they go into someone's home, ideally. It's an interesting, maybe it's an interesting form of sharing.
Yeah.
Considering that they are individual.
Yeah, I think it is an interesting form of sharing. And I think what I love about them is the fact that that I have to handle every single piece with care. Right. So I don't think we've discussed this, but every single piece I create, I only ever make one print or a photograph. Right. So I don't give myself multiple chances to go back and go, oh no, I've done it wrong. Right. I need to do it again. Yeah. So every single piece...
It's kind of a performance.
In some ways, yeah. And I have these certain rules and parameters that I set myself. So sometimes when I'm cutting, I want to cut each line in one fluid movement. So I tell myself every single cut has to be done with one fluid movement. Wow. And I realise now when I'm saying it to you, it's almost like I'm setting affirmations. So I'm saying...
Did you say affirmations?
Yeah, affirmations. Okay. But also I do this because I think that the black body should be handled with care. Right. And with every one of these pieces, you've seen how fragile they are. Yes. I think quite often by the time I've finished the work and it's, the sections have been removed, I can only ever hold that piece of paper up maybe once. Right. Because it's likely to fall apart and fall in on itself. Yeah. So they really have to be handled carefully. And have you ever considered? I'm sorry. No, go ahead. I think and they do become very special because they are one of a kind. Yeah. And they can't be reproduced. And so what someone receives is something very special. Right.
Have you considered, just to make sure that it's understood, these are figurative pictures.
Yeah, they are.
And of the female body. Yeah. Of the black female body. Yeah. There's one in particular, I made a note, it's called Too Late to Turn Back Now. Yeah. And in terms of the fragility of some of the work, this one is particularly, it almost feels like a daisy chain, I think.
Yeah.
It's,
yeah. I've never heard it described as a daisy chain. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. It reminds me of things that one would do as a child. Yeah. In terms of stringing a form of,
and just
repeating
people,
the form.
Yeah, and just for people who obviously can't see that image, there are a number of figures that sit floating within glass. Right. And each head is interlinked with the next. Right. And for me, they kind of remind me of, and this is just for me, they remind me of hanging plants.
Absolutely.
When they interlink. And it's quite a large scale piece, it's around 6 feet tall.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a large work. Yeah, it's a large work. And that work in particular took a really long time to make. And even though the outlines almost look like they're hand-drawn, just figures, and they still have this sense of kind of real delicacy. Yeah. Real delicacy.
All of the work that we're going to refer to is available on the HackelBury website. Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever considered all of the pieces, because of their delicacy, are of course framed? Would you ever consider removing the frame and just having the piece pinned to the wall? Yeah. That would add to it. I think it's vulnerability.
Yeah, and I do have pieces within my own home that are just hung like that, so they hang from picture rails. Right. And they are really fragile. And you never want the door to, swing too hard in case a gust of wind knocks them. But I am thinking about I have been experimenting with using different materials so that there's this sense of fragility, but also longevity as well, so that they are durable.
Yeah, I would imagine the gallery might discourage taking them out of the frame for obvious reasons.
Yeah, but I think there are ways of working with them, and we have been talking about different options.
Right. Does this fragility that we're talking about, does it correspond to your thinking about the body?
Yeah, it also, it does. And it also corresponds to kind of growing up with an idea that to be fragile or to be vulnerable is seen as a weakness and something to push against. But I think in order to even create work, you actually put yourself in a space of vulnerability anyway.
Perhaps.
I feel like I do. In order to share the work, you make yourself vulnerable. Right. You're revealing something about yourself. You're revealing something about the way you think or how you view the world. So I think I am doing that. I think there is a fragility, but also I kind of push against just having this one idea of what it means to be both human or to be a black woman or black person generally in today's society.
Right.
So this kind of, I think there's space for both. And I think there's space for nuance, and I think so often that's not being encouraged.
But there is quite a variety in your work. The more I looked at it, the more I realized all the different maneuvers. And I think, in fact, some of the pieces do not look as fragile as we're describing, but it's almost as if your maneuvers, your involvement creates almost a form of armor. A sense, because it seems that there are certain pieces that you pay a lot of attention to the cloak.
Yeah.
And I think of the word cloak. It's not just clothing. It's something that covers the body. And then you have removed the folds, removed the pattern, or you've amplified the pattern. So it really creates a kind of cocoon, I think.
That's really interesting. I hadn't thought of the clothing being a cloak or a cocoon. I think when I was making those pieces where maybe there's a beautiful flowing dress, I accentuate either the patterns or the folds, and I make the folds more intense.
Absolutely.
And it's almost like this one line becomes 20 because I'm thinking about, I almost amplify it, I make them more compounded. But I hadn't thought of them being a cloak, so that's a really interesting observation.
Okay, we can stop
now. Yeah.
But there's also, with that maneuver that I just described, it feels to me that there's also an interest in pattern and in decoration and almost in the history of that.
So
almost as a kind of, almost a sort of tribal idea. Maybe that's a little far-fetched.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think I am looking at pattern, I'm looking at texture, I'm thinking of history, I'm thinking of complex histories where lots of cultures are interwoven.
Right. It's that interweaving.
Yeah, I think there's an interweaving, but also for me, in creating the work, there's a sense of calm, there's a sense of all of these things are important, yet all of them need... I feel like I'm searching through the work, and I think I mentioned earlier the word excavation, and using the surgical... I think through this work I'm researching, I'm trying to understand, I'm asking questions. I don't think I'm there yet, and maybe I will never be there, and that feels okay. That feels like it's part of this journey. I mean, this body of work entitled Seeing Ourselves has been, I think I started it maybe about 8 years ago.
Wow.
and it's involved so many things, not just the collage works that are very photographic based,
Sure.
but also a podcast series, also talks, also collaborations, a research fellowship which I've been awarded with the National Maritime Museum. It's such an expansive body of work that it constantly excites me. I never feel as though there's nothing more to learn.
Well, I think one of the assets of the work, one of the things that I admire about the work, is it doesn't feel formulaic.
Yeah.
It's not as if you discovered a way of working and you're just reproducing it. In each piece there seems to be an area of inquiry.
Yeah.
And the inquiry changes.
Yeah.
And it also sounds like that again, we go back to the process of you sitting with a piece of paper, a photograph, and making marks on it and removing material, and just that whole sort of meditative process seems important.
It does. It is very important. And for me, the scalpel knife, the X-Acto blade, acts like it's like a drawing material for me. I feel as though I hold it like a pencil. I feel like I'm drawing with that object.
There's also there's a really interesting shift. Almost, it's not quite a contradiction, but between presence and absence in the work. Because you remove information, and sometimes the body almost becomes invisible. It seems to me. There are times that I feel like you're creating ghosts. Yeah. There are times that you can see through the figure. You've removed the figure. You can see another piece of information, either the background
or a shadow.
Or the shadow that the sort of lacy form creates is really provocative. Interesting.
And I think through making the work, when those shadows started to come through, I wouldn't say I knew exactly what those shadows meant. Right. But with time, I'm starting to think about what shadows mean and what they mean to me, and how they may reference dreams, they may reference the past, they might reference history, and quite often in the work, I see the shadows as more important than what sits at the surface and the foreground. So people have come and they've seen the work and said to me, that's why I love doing AIPAD and love doing shows, because I get to have in-person conversations with people as they see the work. But they've said to me, it looks as though those shadows are drawn on. They're drawn on, aren't they? Yeah. And they're not. But I love that. I love how the shadows change, and I love how time is very present in the work. It's a really important component, whether it's in terms of how long the work takes or just the references to the past itself.
Well, could you talk a little bit more about the past and its embodiment in the work, if you can?
Yeah, I think.
I mean, it's both a cultural past and a personal past.
It is, and it can be something as simple as I only give myself one chance, therefore you can't mess up, therefore if something goes wrong, I have to put the work aside, give it time, and then come back to it when I feel ready. Or it can be my relationship to working in museums and not really seeing myself represented back in either the collections or the staff that work in those spaces. The same even today when you might walk into a gallery or museum, looking at, particularly in the UK I would say, looking at who works within those spaces predominantly, whose voices are heard, who selects what is deemed as appropriate to enter a collection.
Has it changed? Has it changed in the last few years?
I think there's more, I would say there's more visibility, but I don't know the figures in terms of who works within those spaces and who makes those decisions. Yeah. But
has the programming changed?
I think the programming has changed to a certain extent. I think being part of the Gagosian show a couple of years ago, that was a show that featured people of the African diaspora across both the African continent and the Caribbean.
Was that curated by Antoine?
No, that was curated by Peju Ocean, who is Associate Director and Curator at Gagosian in London.
Great.
And I had worked with Pedju previously, so I worked with her when she asked me to be a mentor on a programme at the Tate when she was working as a curator at the Tate. And then subsequently we've collaborated again, so she interviewed me at the National Portrait Gallery.
Oh, right. Okay.
In November.
Yeah.
So when I'm given an opportunity to kind of select who I want to interview me, I've had people like Echo Eshen interview me, and also Pedju and various other people as well. So I think in terms of history and in terms of how we see ourselves, that's where the work began. And so it's now at a point where, with the research fellowship that I'm doing currently, I'm looking at archives and collections at the National Maritime Museum. I've been struck by one particular image, one particular photograph.
What is the photograph of it?
The photograph is of, it's taken in 1875, and it's of some children off the coast of East Africa who are liberated Africans. I do that because my reaction to seeing the photograph was all-encompassing and very
visceral.
Yeah. I probably won't say much more about that image now because I'm in the process of working with it, but that's what I'm working with, and that's working towards a year-long fellowship. Which will culminate in a solo show next year, which is fantastic for me.
So it sounds like the odds are that that this picture has inspired what the solo show will be.
It has.
Okay.
And so
you will work physically with your scalpel with this picture.
No.
Okay.
I'll say no more at this point. But that image will inspire a body of work, is inspiring a body of work. And I don't want to be, we talked about being formulaic earlier, and that's what you love about the work. And equally, with the research fellowship and with the show I'm working towards, I don't want it to be formulaic. There are certain things that photograph brought up for me because of the title of the image. Had some very close links with my family life, which made me even more emotional about this photograph. I feel as though through seeing that photograph, I feel compelled to make the work. I have no choice because there were way too many connections to just go, that photograph's very difficult, I need to put it back.
It's a very compelling, what you just said is a very compelling idea, that you had no choice. You simply must engage with this image and understand the image and bring that image into the public and bring it into the public again.
Yeah, and I think it's about not bringing the physical image into the public domain. That's not what I intend to do with the work, and I have been asked if that's what I intend to show, and I don't intend to show that. I intend to reference it. I intend to spark a conversation. And what I've really enjoyed about this entire body of work is having space to be able to look at, to unveil, to uncover, to have discussions, very open discussions about.
And we talked a little bit earlier about the idea of community engagement, both in terms of your professional practice as well as the motivation for the work. And it seems like it's a thread that runs through all of your thinking, and to me it also comes back to this idea of sharing. And I used the word pedagogical earlier, and I don't think that landed so well. But teaching can take a lot of different forms.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of and my background is community engagement based, and so working with communities that often don't see themselves reflected back in in arts and heritage spaces. And I was kind of the go-between to link the two. But also, what I'm really keen to do in my work is not just to do tick box exercises, I call them. But working in a way that has some legacy. So that's why when I was asked to create a piece for the National Portrait Gallery, that has so much legacy. That work is now acquired in their collection and can be seen to the public.
And it's quite a large horizontal piece?
It's about that size.
Okay.
I'm not good with measurements, but it's about that size, And it's quite rare for the National Portrait Gallery to have those pieces with it, a collage work within the collection. But yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you think of collage? I mean, there's something interesting about collage. It's so often inadvertently dismissed as being a kind of craft or, an easily understood process. But I also think that it has a history of political provocation.
Yeah.
Collage being. And actually, it reminds me, I want to make sure that I understood, because some of your work are your own photographs, and then some is taken from magazines.
Yeah, less and less so now.
From the magazines?
Yeah, less and less so from the magazines. And maybe if they are from a magazine, it might be, I don't know, a section of the sky that I don't Photoshop anything to manipulate them, but I will put my hand in again and use pastel or paint over and then cut away and remove. So yeah.
Are you interested in fashion photography at all?
I do love fashion photography.
Aha.
But and there are references. Yeah, I do. Yeah. And there are references to fashion photography in some of the works.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that's where there's such a diverse range, because there can be this kind of image that looks very fashion based,
right,
but then it's juxtaposed with a kind of very traditional countryside space.
There are some images in that the figure is very explicitly in a pose that's very familiar from fashion magazines.
And the reason for that is because at the time I might have been looking through magazines, and I was really struck by seeing a figure, a black female, often a dark-skinned black female woman, within the magazine, and I'd be like, wow, absolutely beautiful. And it was more about playing. It was really a playful act. It was really thinking about where we see ourselves, how our stories are being told, what kinds of magazines are referencing us, what they're trying to say about us, but also kind of reclaiming, kind of putting a different narrative on it, a different slant, a new way of storytelling.
Well, I think perhaps it's also a form of recuperating that image. Taking that image away from its context and saying, I will now share the authorship of that image and maneuver it.
Yeah, and equally, I do have people who, if they've commissioned the work, they might have a particular image they want to use.
You do commissions?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have done a number of commissions. I don't take on loads because that takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
But I have taken on commissions where I've created a work where someone maybe has a family member they'd like to commemorate through my work, and then we have a long conversation around who that person was, what they liked, and I create something bespoke for them.
Which is again another form of community and collaboration.
Yeah. And I really enjoy that. I think it's something that has been really special to my practice.
Of course, yeah.
Really special.
Well, I also, looking a lot at the work yesterday, I began to think of just about ideas of beauty. And I think that is another part of the work, is trying to understand, in your case, trying to understand Black beauty. And both in the way that it has been depicted and then your response to that, your engagement with it.
And I'm really keen to create works that talk about the multiplicity of Black beauty, and not just an external reference to beauty. Something about the spirit, something about the piece that we have in the show here, where there's a figure standing in a landscape that juxtaposes Monstera with what looks something very tropical, but then also looks in, like, you get these pockets of autumn leaves, and then the figure is completely cut away, the dress is cut away, and you get to see these autumn, like really glowing autumn leaves shining through. And in that work I'm talking about, yes, it's a beautiful piece, it's a beautiful image, but I'm also talking about the light that we hold within ourselves, that so often the answers are within us and we're looking for external validation. So I think, and I'm not completely sure that's communicated in the work, but I know what I'm thinking about and I know where I'm trying to go with it, and it's something that I'll continue to do and just continue to explore.
Well, now that you mention it, the idea of the interior, I think is important because, I mean, although I did mention cloaking before, there are other pieces in that. It feels like you're removing the outer, I don't know, the outer body, the skin, and moving inside. I mean, not in any really
gory way.
Physical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's about the psyche. It's about who we are deep inside, who we've been told we should be, and who we ultimately are. And I think through the work I'm looking at ways that people can connect with. They might see themselves reflected back. They might connect with something that they can't quite put the words to, but it's a feeling. And I'm sure so many artists are trying to do the same.
Right.
But I think this is what I'm trying to do with the removal and trying to connect in that way.
Yeah. Well, hearing you articulate this, it does seem like, you know, it's a form of making something kind of diaphanous.
I don't know that word.
Well, it's something thin and transparent. And I just had this idea of the possibility of some of those pieces being illuminated from behind. And I know that the shadow is important to you.
And I have made like a light box back in, when was it? A couple of years ago for a solo show I had in the Midlands in the UK. That was my first Seeing Ourselves exhibition. I made a large-scale light box that had photographs that I had taken that were all different, plants and leaves, and then a portrait inside, and then that lit from behind. That was lit, and then I also made a large-scale work for Coventry City of Culture, where it was a shop window, and I took over the shop window, and within that shop window there was lighting, and there were fans. So my figure, life-size figure, was moving through the landscape. So yes, that is something that I'm looking at for some current works that I'm making.
And there's a beautiful piece on the HackelBury website of your work, and it's an individual bust, for lack of a better word. It's a woman in profile, and it feels very classical in terms of its configuration. But it also feels completely transparent. It's almost as if it's been printed on a piece of transparent plastic.
Yeah, I wanted in that work for it to feel, to reference history again, but also to look at how so often the black body has been excluded, other than to act to be in a position of servitude to others.
To be invisible.
Yeah, to be invisible. Yeah. So I wanted to highlight the fact that we have been here and we are, we are to be seen. And I think it goes back to what you were saying about sharing. I'm trying to share stories. I'm trying to share hidden histories through, whether it's my collage work or whether it's through the podcast or the interactions or the exhibitions. I want to bring some things to the forefront. But whilst doing that, I'm doing that. But alongside that, I'm creating my own archive. So I am thinking about, not constantly, but I am thinking about.
I hope not.
What's that?
I hope you're not thinking about it constantly.
No, not constantly. Yeah. But I am thinking every now and again about in future what images will be shown about today and how will those stories be told. So
just for clarification, so you're thinking of how your work will be seen, how it will be understood 30 years from now. There was an exhibition of Tyler Mitchell's work at Gagosian here. I don't know if you saw it.
I haven't seen it yet, but it's at the Met, isn't it? Is that the one?
No, it's at Gagosian.
Oh, is it?
There's a wonderful show at the Met.
Yeah.
But
that sounds fun. There's another show there.
Yeah. It's called Ghost. I bring it up because it's called Ghost Images.
I have heard about that show.
Yes, and some of the images are printed on transparent fabric.
Yeah, I've seen images of them. They look beautiful.
Yeah,
really beautiful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's been really difficult to get around and see all the shows I want to see.
Of course. But as a visitor, you probably see more than we do.
Yeah, that's true.
So.
I think my last trip I had more time to see a lot more.
Right.
Even though I've spent less time here, but this trip, for some reason, it's been meeting up with a lot of people.
Has anyone approached you to do anything involving theater, costumes, the actual body moving across?
No, but I
something choreographic even.
Yeah, I had spoken to someone a couple of years ago, and then she got busy with film stuff she was doing, and then I got busy with some shows.
Yeah.
But we still plan to work together. She's an actor. And,
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not to be obsessed about the framing of your work, but it feels to me that, and the more that we talk, that at some point what you do is going to have to leave the wall.
Yeah.
And actually be in real space, either accompanying a body or.
And I think I have dipped into that already with the show windows piece, where it was a life-size cutout, where it wasn't against the wall. And I think it is moving towards that gradually. But I think with the work, I and with relationships, community relationships or people I know, I like things to grow organically. Like there have been a few people like, you should do this, and if you did this, this would be... Yeah, that's great, but it also makes me push away, because my grandmother used to say to me, nothing before it's time. And I truly believe that. I think when you try to push things, it's like with doing cutouts, when you try and push, like working really hard, get this, like pushing through it. No, I think it's about taking your time and letting things grow. And once there's a reason for those works to fully remove themselves from the wall and be in a space, I think that will happen.
When there's an opportunity for that to be...
Or when it feels right for me.
Yeah.
I think the opportunity is already there.
Right.
I know that with my gallery, for example, we have had conversations previously, and so I know the opportunity and the support is there, but it really has to feel like this is important for the work, and for me to have a really good understanding about why I want to do that at that particular time.
You have very strong intuitions. You have a very strong sense of...
Yeah. And it's just like when people say to me when they come to see the work here, they're like, how do you draw everything out? You know what you're going to cut. But no, it's about intuition. It's about trusting the process.
Right. It's
about breathing into the work and just letting things grow.
Do you feel sometimes that the knife is actually guiding you?
Yeah, I think, but I do feel as though it's me guiding the knife as well. Because I know that when I'm looking at something, I'm looking at certain elements of a photograph, and that's where I start. There are certain things that I'm drawn to that encourage me to start. So it's not like with a blank canvas, you kind of go, people talk about that blank canvas. I don't have that. I have that feeling of this is where I start, and I'm almost excited to start. And or sometimes quite apprehensive and nervous. But once I start, then it's okay. And if it's not, put it aside and you wait, and then it'll come back at the right time.
It sounds like so much fun.
It is.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it. There's part of me that wishes I had even more time to make. Yeah. Because there are so many things.
The time will come.
Yeah, the time will come. Nothing before it's time.
Yeah. Maybe that's a good place to leave it.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Great. Thank you so much.
I really enjoyed our conversation.
Well, I've learned so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being with us this morning. And please go and see the work. I think it's important to see it. If you're here, it's important to see it in person. But if not, of course, there's some lovely work on the website. So thanks so much.
Thank you.